Welcome to another edition of TN Sports Chat presented by Lehigh Valley Health Network. I'm Patrick Matsinko. This is Emmett McCall. I don't know if I should thank you or apologize to you for coming back with me for a second week of this.
First week went so smoothly, Pat.
I don't know, our ratings aren't in yet, but I don't know what our approval rating is. But we're back, and we don't even have a tripod this week. We're propping the phone up on a box, so
MacGyver-like.
but people don't know how hard it is to get these things put together. But regardless, we're here, and kind of a bit of a wacky week. We had some weather kind of wreak havoc on our schedule. Didn't really have a full slate, since the last time we came to you, but we did have some action. I know you got out to cover a game on Friday night, a big Schuylkill League Division I game between North Schuylkill and Lehigh. And North Schuylkill
They're the real deal.
Played pretty well.
Yeah. Avery Jordan, Sam Shunkus, really talented team. They had beaten Tamaqua pretty handily about a week earlier, and I know Tamaqua has a pretty good team, so I was anxious to see how Lehigh would be able to match up with them. And Lehigh came in with an 8-1 record and played them tough in the first half. They were down by 8 at half, but incredible shooting display by North Schuylkill, and they pulled away. But at that game, before that game actually, Lehigh honored Skylin Faust, who had topped the 1,000 point mark a couple days earlier at Pottsville. So they waited till they got home, had a plaque, had a nice game ball for us, stuff like that. So that was really nice.
Yeah.
But Skylin became the 7th girls basketball player in Lehigh history only to top 1,000 points.
She's had a phenomenal career. Obviously, she's had a great season. Her senior year, she's second leading scorer in the area,
Averaging over 25 points a game, which is crazy. Like last year, she was our first team All-Star, had a great season, averaged 15 points a game, but she's taken that average up over 10 points a game this year, which is pretty amazing.
And it shows in the way the Indians have been playing so far this season. Off to a great start. They were playing super well. Lost a tough game against Pleasant Valley in that Lady Indian Holiday Classic in overtime, but had a furious comeback just to force overtime, and then
the 8-2 record. And one thing I was really impressed with interviewing Skylin for the 1,000 point story that appeared in our Tuesday edition was how focused she was on team success more than her individual success. They haven't had a winning record in her first 3 years there, so despite playing some pretty good ball individually, Sky was all about the team and how fun it is, how much fun it's been this season, off to, like I said, an 8-2 start. So I really thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah, and obviously she's been, one of many highlights on the girls basketball side so far this season. Another has been Kaylee Kovac, a 3-time All-State player, 2-time Times News Player of the Year. Was off to another fantastic start this season. Became Jim Thorpe's all-time leading scorer. Boys or girls. Broke Celeste Robinson's record last month against Panther Valley. Unfortunately, on Saturday against Lake Lehman, Kaylee suffered a torn ACL that ended her season, which is extremely unfortunate.
Yeah, what a shame. Just one of those things that you just can't plan. You can't plan out for, but Kaylee does have the Division I scholarship.
Yeah.
She's you talked to Rob Kovac, which was kind of big news out of that. He said
and that's the one thing you worry about, that that you don't want to see a kid's dreams kind of go up in smoke on one play, one injury.
Right.
But Coach Kovac really stressed that was one of the reasons that she picked St. Francis University was because of the atmosphere created there and sort of the relationship that she has with the coach, with the coaching staff, and she was reassured and assured that there's nothing to worry about, that her scholarship is there. Whenever she's ready, she's going to come back, and she's going to be ready and 100% ready to go. So,
and a big challenge for Coach Kovac and the rest of the Jim Thorpe team. It'll be interesting to see how they respond with Kaylee out of the lineup. Obviously, there's no way to replace what she does for that team or did for that team, but it'll give some other girls on the the team a chance to step up and create new roles for themselves, and we'll see what they do the rest of the year.
Yeah, obviously it changes the whole dynamic when you lose a player of that caliber, of that quality, just the way the team operates. So obviously it's going to be a bit of a learning curve, I think, for everybody. And I know with the schedule the way it's been, there aren't many days to practice. It's a lot of games kind of back to back to back. So there isn't going to be a whole lot of time to sort of feel it out, I guess,
Right.
if you will. You're going to kind of be thrown to the fire.
And I thought one of the cool things in your story that ran in Tuesday's Times News was Coach Kovac told you that one of the first people to reach out to Kaylee when she suffered the injury was Sky Faust.
Yeah.
Good friends, they played AAU ball together, compete against each other in the Schuylkill League for the last 4 years, but but are still really good friends off the court. And I guess Sky gave her a call, sent her a text, something right after she heard about the injury. That's really nice.
And Coach Kovac again really stressed that the outpouring of support has been incredible. From Lake Lehman players to girls that Kaylee's played AAU ball with, to even former players of his like Kristen Blazowski, who suffered an injury when Coach Kovac was coaching at Panther Valley. Suffered a similar injury on a very good team. But just players who have kind of gone through these sort of things and just trying to kind of help her through it and give her the support that that she needs, and hopefully try to get her, and hopefully she'll try to get back to 100% and see what she can do at St. Francis.
Yeah, good wishes to Kaylee on a quick and speedy and full recovery.
Absolutely.
We also had some wrestling.
Yes, we did.
Last week. And speaking of that, in today's paper, we'll have our first Times News wrestling column. Pat, you have a column. What did you do there? Your lead feature?
The first one, and it kind of seemed to come together perfectly, I guess. Over the weekend, we had the Anthracite Duels at Panther Valley, annual tournament, team tournament that runs at Panther Valley. Always really well run. 16 teams, kind of a pool play format. But one of the things that happened was Panther Valley's Tanner Kennedy picked up his 100th career victory, joining brother Hunter in the 100-win club. And that was a really special moment, just to kind of see them have that together. Dad, Ed Kennedy, was a wrestler at Panther Valley, state qualifier, never got 100 wins. But I think
something his sons can hold over.
Yeah, and I know they're really competitive, and that's something that they kind of talk about, joke about. But I know that
they got it 2 weeks apart.
Yeah,
that's really cool.
And it was a great source of pride, you could tell, for the whole family. And to have that happen at home in front of family and friends was something that was really, really neat for them. And got a chance to catch up with Hunter and Tanner and kind of talk about that moment and how special it was for their family.
It's awesome, especially for him today. He got 100 wins and I got it the first week. All the hard work's paying off, and it should pay off more as the season goes on.
How much do you guys talk about stuff like that? I mean, I'm sure you knew coming into the season how close you were, but how much do you guys talk about, those kind of things that motivate each other, I guess?
We talk about it a lot. I mean, we're really competitive. We were talking about it before the season started, who's going to get 100 quicker, who's going to break the record with wins. It's just competitive at home.
My goal, obviously, to do good this season, and I want to get the states in place this year, pretty high. And I think by my hard work that I'm putting in, I think I can do it.
What about for you, Tanner? I mean, Schuylkill League champion last year, and so close to, obviously going to states as well and everything like that.
I'd like to repeat, get a two-time league champ, do good districts, regionals, and then hopefully get a medal at states.
That was Hunter and Tanner Kennedy talking about both reaching 100 wins this season. And again, that was just one of many highlights over the weekend. As a team, Lehigh did really well, went 3-2, ran up against some tough 3A competition, which I think head coach Floyd Brown really liked for his guys to kind of get out of that Schuylkill League, kind of see some different styles. Yeah. Individually, Lucas Sangiuliano, Christian Rodriguez, Tyler Schock, Brett Gasker all went 4-1 for Lehigh. Individually, Derek Beckham and Aaron Item both went 4-1 for Panther Valley. But again, I think that's something too that Tim Robb stresses when he's putting the tournament together, just to kind of get those pools set up where there's a balance of competition, where you're going to have some teams that maybe are kind of lower tier, but they're in a position where they can compete with some of the schools that are there.
Right, and from all over the state.
Yeah.
And not just, Eastern Pennsylvania here. They brought teams in from all over the place.
And it's it's far and wide. It's well out of District 11. There are team there from St. Joseph Regional, team champion from New Jersey. So you're getting a wide range of competition. Some schools that kids might not see at all again for the rest of the year, whether they're 3A or out of District 11, however it breaks down. But I know that's a big thing for the tournament, just to and to simulate the postseason too, to get them 5 matches in a day where it's kind of rapid fire. That's a big thing, and I know both coaches really like that out of those kinds of tournaments. So we also had Jim Thorpe do well at the South Williamsport tournament.
That's 2 weekends in a row.
Yeah.
2 of the last 3. Jim Thorpe has had a really strong tournament showing.
Came away with 4 individual titles. Will Schwartz, John Newhall, Austin Williams, Ethan Mordaunt all captured individual titles there. Andrew Eisenhart was second. So that was another big tournament for them. And I think those kind of things just build confidence, thinking
Right.
about the end of the season and to kind of get through a tournament, whether you're undefeated or, you're able to pick up a title, get a runner-up finish. I think those are kind of things that all sort of build toward the end of the season.
Yeah.
Also at the Hamburg duels for Tamaqua. Tamaqua went 2-3, but head coach Jim McCabe picked up his 100th win as a head coach, which is big. He's back this year at
I was going to say,
Tamaqua.
returns
Yeah.
after a couple year absence.
I think he certainly has this program doing well, going in the right direction, and just
Trying to build
again,
numbers.
yeah,
'Cause
which
is
is
really important, as you can tell by some of the schools in this area. We were talking about it a little last week. Building numbers, getting youth programs going, trying to create some excitement.
And just to kind of cultivate that interest, it's a numbers game, just like any other sport. So to kind of be able to fill a 14-person lineup, that's a huge part of it. And then to kind of think also about Northwestern, went 1-3 at the Zephyr duels. Matt Peters and Caleb Clymer both went undefeated. Matt had 4
No
pins.
surprises there.
No,
They're 2 really outstanding wrestlers for the last couple of years at Northwestern.
And Caleb undefeated, this season. Bethlehem Holiday Classic title already, sort of under his belt, which is, again, we talked last week about sort of what his goals are for this year, and it's a state title, and I think he's certainly on track, and he's doing everything he needs to check off that box.
3 more pins in his 4 bouts. Peters
Yeah.
had 4 pins in 4
Yeah.
bouts, so
And
yeah,
that's
really
a kid that
impressive
missed
showing.
some time. I mean, he was a state qualifier as a freshman, missed the majority of the season as a sophomore with an illness. Last year suffered kind of a fluke injury that cut his season short again. So, this is a kid that has kind of been under the radar he's been off the radar the last 2 years, but he's certainly one of the most talented wrestlers there. And,
I'm sure he's looking forward to
Yeah.
postseason and making up for the last 2 years where he didn't have the chance to do something.
And that's the thing. I
postseason.
mean, just kind of was sort of taken away from him. So I think he's definitely in a position to do really well. But that's for the end of the season. We have more action on tap this weekend. Lehighton will be hosting the Indian duels on Saturday. So it's another great chance to kind of get out and check out some action, in the area. Great competition. And then tonight we have Upper Dauphin at Panther Valley, a match.
Schuylkill League.
Yeah, so
Division 2 showdown.
I mean, good competition there on both sides, and that's something that we have a writer covering that, so we'll have full coverage of that for you in Thursday's paper. But and again, just to kind of think too about those off the mat state rankings. I know it's kind of it's almost like that still too early, sort of projections when you're kind of looking ahead like that. But again, at 160 pounds, we had Northwestern's Jackson Bernard actually jump up from 16th to 10th. Tanner Kennedy, despite a great weekend, he went from 11th to 9th. At 170 pounds, we had Caleb Clymer stay at 6th, Hunter Kennedy stay at 8th, and we had Tamaqua's Bronson Strauss still 16th at 220 pounds. So those are our 5 guys that we have in the AA off the mat rankings, which again is all kind of subject to change, just like my rankings, which you're kind of it's hard sometimes until you have those head-to-head matchups where you're sort of just.
Great transition there. Pat.
Yeah,
Are
it's
you making excuses for your
no. I
rankings
mean,
already?
just again, it's an inexact science, and ultimately, I think you kind of see what you have at the end of the year, and that's what matters most.
Right.
You could look at Lucas Sangiuliano last year, a kid who was at 113 pounds all season, kind of totally off the radar, off the grid, drops down to 106 for districts, not seeded, doesn't have a great seed, ends up in a district final,
Yeah.
Goes to regionals. And that's the kind of thing where even at Colin Rex at Northwestern, injury replacement at regionals ends up going to states. So a kid that you're not paying any attention to for whatever reason, they can really surprise you at the end of the year, which is, I think, part of what makes wrestling fun too. So,
and we also some big basketball games coming up this coming week. Colonial League girls basketball, Northwestern off to a great start. They're 7-1 in the league. They're 8-3 overall. Their only league loss was to Southern Lehigh. Back, I think it was on December 20th, they lost a really close game, led for a good part of the game, lost by 3 points. That game was the first time in 33 games that a Colonial League opponent stayed within single digits of Southern Lehigh. They've dominated the league the last 2 years, but I think Northwestern is right there with them this year. They play Saturday at Southern Lehigh, and then 2 days later on Monday, Northwestern goes to Notre Dame, who is another one of the Colonial League girls' powerhouses. They only have one loss as well, so it's a really huge week coming up for Coach Chris Deutsch.
Yeah, I mean, and he every year seems to kind of have these girls as a Colonial League and a District 11 contender. And I know this year there's a lot of the players from those teams are back, more experience. Some of those girls played as freshmen last year, so so that's big for them. And this is, like you said, this is a really big stretch for the Colonial League, and just thinking about going forward, because it's almost the middle of January.
Right.
And
we get 3 weeks left in the regular season. We're at that point of first week of February. It's ending, so it's getting there. Speaking of girls basketball, Schuylkill League also has a big girls basketball game on Saturday. One area is at Marion. Girls both currently undefeated in league play, both highly touted. They're both powerhouses for the last couple of years. Marion for the last couple decades. So that should be a good game Saturday up at Marion.
Yeah, and I mean, Marion again is a team that, like you said, like we talked about with Northwestern and head coach Chris Deutsch, Coach Bruto always has those girls ready to play in a position to succeed, and that's kind of, I think, sort of how he's managed to kind of maintain that level of success for so long. Which is, I know we talked, last week about him getting his 700th career victory, which is remarkable at any level, but I think again it's just a credit to how well he has those girls prepared.
And one more game we want to talk about, one more team we want to talk about, Schuylkill League boys team, Tamaqua. Currently, Tamaqua, Blue Mountain, and Pottsville, they're right at the top of the Schuylkill League Division I boys standings. A game separates all three of them right now, and coming up Tuesday, next Tuesday is Tamaqua will be at Pottsville for a showdown, one of several they're going to have over the next couple of weeks as these teams all start playing each other in league play. In Schuylkill League, you play everybody twice in Division I, so they're going to see Blue Mountain and Pottsville a few more times, but first time against Pottsville this year, and up at Mart's Hall they'll be. Expect a really good game there.
And just to kind of think too about some of the Colonial League boys basketball, I know Palmerton on Friday night picked up a big win over Northwestern. Nate Doherty, another great game. He's been really huge for them this year.
Yeah,
Coach
over 21 points a game.
So that's been massive for them, and that's a big win for that team, for that program. And then also just to kind of think too, also on Friday night you had Northern Lehigh beat Southern Lehigh, which is head coach Jeff Miller. Those kids have been playing super well all season. Brandon Hess, I think, had 23 points in that game.
Yeah, they're over 500 now.
Yeah.
Northern Lehigh.
So
off to a great start at 6-5, I believe they are now overall, and playing really good basketball. I know Coach Miller is really excited about this year's team.
And that's, I mean, again, you kind of look at some of the Colonial League standings, and we'll see where things shake out at the end of the year. But they certainly seem like they're right in the mix, along with Northwestern and Palmerton.
Right, all three of our local teams
Yeah.
are going to be competing very competitive in the Colonial League this year, I think.
And in the EPC, I mean, we have both Pleasant Valley boys and girls have been definitely playing well so far this season. I mean, Pleasant Valley has really, the boys have taken some teams to the wire this season.
Yeah.
I mean, they're really, Matt
Couple
Gould,
tough losses.
yeah, head coach at Pleasant Valley boys. I mean, I think this year, this team seems to be kind of coming together, maybe better with Isaiah Howard, some of their other guys, Noah Newbert, some of these guys that really seem to be kind of embracing these roles and playing really well in a tough EPC. No matter who
there's
you play.
no breathers in
No.
that league. Yeah, night after night, night in, night out. You're facing tough competition. There's just no margin for error in that league. You have to bring your best every night.
Yeah, and you look at it in some of the games they've had against the Eastons and the Nazareths, where maybe they've been up in the first half, and just kind of a second half comeback has just sort of tripped them up in some of those games. But they've been competitive in pretty much every game they've played this year, and so have the Pleasant Valley girls. I mean, again, that's a group that it's a varied group. It could be Masani Francis, Cameron Caffrey, Madison Rosenberg, Ashley Schwank. There's a whole number of different playmakers for head coach Nadia Goronsky that they've been able to utilize this year and play. I mean, they're playing really well.
Right.
But anything else for you?
No, I think we've covered just about everything. Big games ahead this week. We'll be back next week, next Wednesday, to talk about them all and see how it goes. And it's warm out. This is so good.
But we're still stuck in the training room for the foreseeable future.
But it's warm in here.
But it is warm in here, and that's always good. We don't have to deal with wind. And hopefully next week we'll have the tripod back in
Make things so much easier.
full use. But I don't know. I can maybe blame the tripod for anything that I forget or mess up. But yeah, so that's all for this week. And again, if you have any comments, questions, suggestions, anything like that, please feel free to message, comment, email. Our email is tnsports@tnonline.com. Or again, if you just want to message, comment, anything that's easier for you, we're more than happy to take your suggestions and do whatever we can to kind of make this better or as good as we can. Sometimes that's good enough. But that's all for this week. I'm Patrick Matsinko for Emmett McCall. Thank you again for tuning in, and we'll see you next week.